Here we go.
Okay.
Hi. Hi, Jonah. How are
Hey,
you?
hi, showed up. I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. I really
Of
appreciate
course.
it. Yeah. So let me introduce you to our audience. And again, thanks to everybody who's attending live. And also, this will be on replay for you to watch at some point. And I was just telling Jonar that my intention is to put this series of Lifestyle Medicine Summit speaker series on a YouTube channel so we can take it off Facebook and it'll be always available. I think sometimes it's hard to find stuff just kind of scrolling through and trying to, find the post. So, um,
Right.
so Dr. De Guzman, thank you again for
Yes.
joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let me introduce you to our audience. So Dr. Jonar de Guzman is a hospitalist and he works in LA and he is passionate about lifestyle medicine. And he is also a long-time meditator for like more than 16 years. And as somebody who's tried to meditate off and on consistently for many, many years, I'd love to hear, some aspects of how you've been successful in incorporating it into your, I'm sure, extremely busy life and,
Sure.
staying consistent with it. But I also want to talk more also about how you have been able to incorporate lifestyle medicine into hospitalist work. I've had
Mm-hmm.
several, specialists tell me that, we believe in the principles of lifestyle medicine, but we're finding it hard to do it as a specialist. So I just wanted you to kind of touch upon that and kind of give us some,
Sure.
idea of how you started, what, where you are at, how you're incorporating into your practice, and what do you see going forward. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you and let you take it
Okay.
from there.
Definitely a lot of stuff to discuss, but why don't we start from my upbringing because that influenced a lot of where I am now.
Sure. Yeah.
So I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. I was the only one born in my family here in the States. All my family was born in the Philippines. Um, And so I grew up with three older sisters. I didn't want to actually to have anything to do with medicine. I wanted to go into international politics and international affairs. So that's kind of what I did during high school, or not high school, during college, but started thinking about it in high school because I actually lived in Japan, in Osaka, Japan during the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. And so I was really dead set on going into international affairs. I worked at the State Department. I worked at the World Bank. I even, lived abroad in the Philippines working for the State Department. So I was really on track. But in 2001, my dad was diagnosed with colorectal cancer.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I was kind of left with a decision. Should I pursue my career goals or should I just go back to stay with, my mom and dad to make
Yeah.
sure he's doing okay before I, continue with my career? And
Yeah.
so I moved back to Chicago. I worked at a law firm, just to work at the same time helping take care of my dad. But he eventually passed away.
I'm
And so
sorry.
that was in 2004. Yeah,
Mm.
no, it's, I think at the time it was really hard for me. I
Yeah.
was in my early 20s, losing your dad at any age, but definitely when you're younger and you don't really, you know, have that father figure to guide you through the rest of life. That was really hard for me.
Absolutely.
So, we talked about meditation. So when I was in Japan, I, went to a Buddhist temple with like all the other foreign exchange students, and we did a guided meditation with the Buddhist monks. And you're in high school, so you don't really, your mind is not ripe for that type of thing at the time. But at that moment in 2004, when my dad died, I said, you know what, I got to give it a shot because
Yeah.
it was just so hard for me. So I started doing it on a daily basis, and really that got me through that part
Mm.
of like my life. And I refocused. I decided, you know what, I was so involved with my dad's care
Mm.
that being a doctor, I think I would really thrive at. And so, there's actually similarities between like international affairs and medicine. International affairs, you're trying to affect a bunch of people kind of like on a more macro scale. But in medicine, what's great about it is you can affect individuals one at a time, and you can actually see the change almost immediately. So
Right.
that's kind of what drew me to medicine. And so, I was living in Chicago, actually living, my mom took me in, I was living with my mom, taking classes and then also paying through the classes while working at Starbucks. So like I was very busy. I had no time for anything. I would work like 30 hours at Starbucks, do all my science classes because I remember I never took it, back in college. And
Right.
so I got in. I went to medical school, but as soon as I got to medical school, I started struggling.
Mm.
I was doing like a long distance relationship with this girl who I was dating in Chicago. We had
Mhm.
a like really bad breakup, and then there was like unresolved issues with stuff between my dad that just like blew up in medical school. So
Mm.
there's several classes that I ended up failing,
Right.
which I have actually never verbally said to the public. Like my friends and family know about it, but this is the first time ever I'm actually like, telling a lot of people that this happened. So for me, it's very personal, but I think it's a good story to share because like I ended up still pushing through. I kind of you went to medical school, so you know very well you have no time for anything.
Yeah.
So but you got to make time for things that matter. And
Right.
so I wasn't meditating really much at all, but I started getting back into meditating again. And
Mhm.
thankfully, our medical school, so I went to Georgetown, we started a mind body medicine program when I
Mhm.
was a second year. And so I was very involved in that program. That really helped out a lot. It was a great support group. Nancy Harazic, who is the director of Mind Body Medicine, it's still going on now. Like that was like 11 years ago, and it's still
Mhm.
thriving. So it's amazing to see. But I even helped to, start our bereavement group for like med students who've had family members or close ones pass away. So that was also a great support network. So I miraculously made it through. Um, you know, Again, there were so many struggles. There was a point in time when I got sick for maybe about 2 months, like physically sick. I had to
Mhm.
be hospitalized.
Oh,
This
wow.
was during finals week,
Oh my
and
God.
then that was like a month before I took the step exam. So I mean, as you can imagine, like that part of my medical career, like I felt very burnt out. And
Yeah.
so when I got in, I decided, internal medicine is probably the thing for me. I'm very much of a guy who's interested in many different things. So it just, it fit with my personality. So I decided to do internal medicine, did my residency out here in LA. And, again, just like medical school, you don't have time for things. All you have time to do is
Right.
wake up, work, go
Right.
home, sleep, and then repeat the cycle, right?
Yes.
So it's very stressful too. So, I ended up, uh, gaining 35 plus pounds. I would stress eat all the time. And, I grew up Filipino, so I ate a lot of meat. It's
Right.
like a very
Right.
meat heavy culture. And
Right.
so at the end of my second year, beginning of my third year, I decided this is enough. Things got to change or else, I'm just headed down, a downward spiral. And
Yeah.
so I experimented with different things. I first started doing ketogenic diet. That helped to lose maybe some weight, but I felt awful all the time. Didn't realize why, but it was because I was eating so much animal fat. So
Right.
then,
What is it? They call it like the keto flu, right? Isn't
yeah,
that what they
exactly.
call
I
it?
felt like that. It was like for 4 months of the time I was doing
Yeah.
a keto flu, basically. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
one of my medical school friends, she introduced me to this book called How Not to Die by Michael Greger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that changed it for me. I
Wow.
read the whole book and I was like, number one, why are we not taught this nutrition stuff in medical school? I
Right.
mean, there is very small amounts of it, but I mean, nutrition is a huge part of why we have so much chronic disease in our society.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it was almost, it was a personal battle for like, my own health, but also, for all of our patients,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so I was like, I got to at least give it a shot. So this was back in 2017, and yes, it's a process. Like I lived my life, 37 of my living years eating meat. But
Right.
like if you want to do something, you can do it. So I stuck to it as much as possible. There's times that I've had lapses, but I think all in all, I would consider myself vegan. And
Mm-hmm.
like I honestly don't remember the last time I ate red meat. It's been
Mm-hmm.
like a very long time. And on top of it, I lost all that weight. I'm actually back to my high school weight.
Wow.
So yeah, I know it's crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
like I have a lot of family. So, and they're all like, why are you doing this? It's so stupid. Like, do you not love your Filipino culture? And I'm like, no, that has nothing to do with it. Like, at a point in time, you have to ask yourself, are you going to hold on to your culture, or are you going to hold on to your health?
Right.
And that, thinking about that, that really triggered me, because I'm like, I'm doing this for myself, because, learning about medicine and learning about why my dad ended up having colorectal cancer. I
Yeah.
mean, he was a big meat eater. He loved processed meat, and he had symptoms for like almost 5 years and didn't get seen by a doctor until it was too
Wow.
late.
Yeah.
So I told myself, like, I don't want that to happen to myself. And now that I have a child, he's 2, like, I
Right.
don't want to repeat the cycle. I'm
Absolutely.
doing this for him.
Right.
And,
Right.
and, and so for me, it's personal in so many ways. And
Yeah.
like, and so from there, I started like listening to more podcasts about, improving your health.
Yeah.
There's a podcast called the Rich Roll podcast. If
Oh,
you
my
haven't listened to it
favorite one.
already, oh
My
my God,
favorite one.
I
Mine
love him.
too.
I love him so much. I
Yeah.
mean, if I could hug him, I would. But like, his guests have like really just brought so much value to like my everyday living,
Right.
and even outside of medicine. Like
Right. Right.
being a good parent, and
Yes.
just like other things like mindfulness. Right? He has a lot of
Right.
guests on mindfulness. So if you
Right.
haven't listened out there, listen to it. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's
Anyways,
totally worth it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so awesome. So
Yeah.
on his show, he had Dean Ornish,
Yes.
and this was at the time that he released the book Undo It. So this
Hmm.
came out last year in like February or something.
Yeah.
So I read that book and I was like, what is lifestyle medicine? Holy crap. I want to do this. This is who I am. This is what I like always wanted to do. So
Yeah.
so I ended up doing the lifestyle medicine coursework, got my board certification in October. And so throughout this whole process, I'm working as a hospitalist, right?
Right.
And 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 don't get me wrong, like what we do as hospitalists and in acute settings, like hospitalist specialists, that part of medicine won't change. We're good at treating
Right.
acute illness. But
Absolutely.
what we're terrible at is treating chronic disease.
Right.
I mean, before the coronavirus epidemic, it's the epidemic of obesity, epidemic of diabetes, epidemic, like just
Yeah.
all this chronic disease that we
Right.
have not been able to control. And it's so systemic. Like, again, going back to Rich Roll, he just had on Michael Greger talking about his book, How Not to Diet. And
Yeah.
he talks about how like the chronic disease, it's systemic in our system. It's,
Yes.
it just feeds itself. It starts when you're kids and you're just attracted to all these just bad food.
Right.
And you continue the cycle when you're an adult and you end up getting all these diseases that we're talking about. So I think that like being a hospitalist, I initially thought to myself, how can I incorporate this? But this is actually such great moments to incorporate it, because it's people coming in for
Yeah.
acute illness. This is their wake up call.
Right.
And
Right.
so for me, it's actually been very easy. So I'm lucky because in my hospitalist group, we have a separate discharge clinic where we see patients who get discharged from the hospital, but it's like a go between with their primary doctor and the hospital, so that, it kind of prevents readmissions. But this has been super helpful for continuing people down the path of healthy living. So
Yeah.
like one example I have is there's this guy who frequent flyer. He came in again because his blood sugar was too high. He ended up having a second toe amputated.
Oh, wow.
And this is the same patient that I saw last time. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? And he was crying to me. He has like 2 kids at home, and he's not much older than me. He's like in his mid 40s.
Oh, wow.
And, and so he was like, I will do anything. What can I do? And I go, okay, well, I'm going to start you on a plant-based diet.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'm just pretending to be him. I'm Hispanic. I've been eating like meat my whole life, but I'll give it a shot if it's for my family. And so we did it in the hospital, and within 24 hours, we had to reduce his insulin dose by half because he became hypoglycemic.
Yeah.
And then I followed him in clinic, and in clinic, he he is no longer now on his insulin. He's on orals only.
That's
And
fantastic.
I mean, like, talk about applying the theory into practice. I mean, this
Right.
stuff works. It
Yeah.
works. And it's
And
just,
it works fast.
what, sorry, was that?
It works fast.
It works fast.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It can work in days and weeks, and then
Right.
has profound changes in months to years. So like that case alone was like, wow, this is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So I see dozens of patients that come through our clinic, our discharge clinic.
Hmm.
There was another guy who, he's a chef. He's also in his like late 40s, has a couple kids at home, came in for abdominal pain. Um, he eats a lot of red meat, and we diagnosed him with diverticulitis, but it wasn't. It was kind of on the borderline. The surgeon was like, "Well, we could possibly operate, but we could do it, um, conservative medical management." So he was like, "What can I do?" And so we put him on a plant-based diet too. Guess what? He didn't have surgery. His
Hmm.
abdominal pain totally went away,
Hmm.
and he's doing fine. 3 months out. So like these are just some of the success cases that like really just charge you and get you reinvigorated
Yeah.
in medicine. And so
Right.
I think for me, like I was very burnt out from all the experiences that I just told to you.
Hmm.
And lifestyle medicine has been the thing that has reignited my love for medicine and helping others.
Hmm.
So I'm sorry, I was talking for a very long
No,
time.
no, that's awesome. I just love that. I love your enthusiasm and your passion for this issue. It takes me back a little to take you back a little bit to when you were talking about when you were in medical school and had this opportunity to have a program around mind body medicine. And it's been a very long time since I went to medical school, some 30 years ago in India.
Okay. Okay.
That was not an aspect that was popular then. And part of my one of my sort of passions is around physician burnout. We all know about it, we hear so much about it. We've heard how we have extremely high rates of suicide among physicians in this country. And so it seems like that is such an important component of our training right from day one of medical school through residency. And
Right.
so a lot of times it seems like you're kind of left to figure it out for yourself, like have your own, maybe your own practice or something like that.
Hmm.
But from a systemic standpoint, what is your view of, is that becoming more and more common now to have those kind of programs available so that we can really start working on avoiding physician burnout, like right from get go?
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's a very good point. I think that starting the conversation early on in anyone's medical career is beneficial for them because, like you were saying, and my story there. I mean, there's countless stories where people burn out. I mean, it's part of the reason why people leave medicine, right?
Right, right.
And I feel like it's happening more frequent and earlier on in people's careers now. And so what I've heard actually is that they, in terms of like creating curriculum for requirements for like, wellness, they're making wellness a requirement for ACGME is what I heard.
Hmm.
So I think now the conversation is changing because they're realizing, this is a big systemic problem that we have to address and change. So yeah,
Right,
I mean, more than ever, it's needed. And
right.
especially now during this pandemic, I mean, like it has really turned everything upside down. And
Absolutely.
people need a support network. They
Right,
need to be able to like think through these things in a healthy manner. So yeah,
right,
I couldn't agree with you more. It's
right.
needed more than ever. But yeah, it should start early on. I would say day one when someone
Yeah,
enters medical school. It should be an established program at every school because it's so easy to just get lost in the shuffle, you
exactly.
know, if someone's not reaching out. So you need to catch those people because otherwise it might be too late by the time you catch them.
Exactly.
And luckily for me, it was almost too late. I left almost twice. And
Yeah, yeah.
luckily I didn't, luckily I
Right,
stuck with it.
right.
I also have like um, very strong-willed sisters who are like, you're not leaving. We're not. They're like three older sisters, so it's like having like
You're gonna
four
stick
moms.
it
So
out,
it's
man,
like,
no matter what.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think some of the points to make again, if again, if anybody in our so a couple of things I just want to say. If anybody is on live with us, please feel free to start interacting with us by posting comments, and Jonar can see them and I can see them, and we can start answering questions. We want to make this interactive. We want people to be involved in this. This is a conversation. This is a conversation about lifestyle medicine for our patients, but I think what's becoming really clear more and more to people like you and me, Jonar, is we have to incorporate these principles into our own life. Like we have to
Yes.
walk the walk in order to be able to talk the talk. So
Preach, sister, preach.
because it's not, and so if there are people who are like maybe faculty who have maybe medical students coming through or residents coming through, it can just be a small offshoot club. It doesn't have to be some big thing, getting permission from the dean or whatever. It's just saying, can we get together maybe twice a month where we can kind of de-stress a little bit? Or, Rachel Naomi Remen does this thing called Meaning in Medicine. And it's very powerful. It's available online. If anybody just, Googles Rachel Naomi Remen, she has done so much work with medical students, and it's actually an elective in multiple medical schools now, her Meaning in
Oh,
Medicine
wow.
program. Yeah. So
is it like an online course? Like, how does it work?
no, I mean, it's called Isha, ISHA, and I can post a link maybe somewhere, but
Yeah, please.
if you type in her name and type in, physician wellness or something, it's a anybody can do it. It's a format where like a bunch of physicians can get together, and she kind of gives you a little format on how to do it, but it's really up to you and the group to develop it the way you want it. So it's not a proscribed program, but what they have for the medical students is, I think you need to be like trained as a facilitator. I don't know if they're still doing those trainings.
Oh, I see.
But I think, one of the things now I've started calling it course-itis. I think as physicians, we tend to think we have to have some sort of a degree, we have to go get that board certification, and then we don't have time. We're too busy, that we have so many, so many things going on that we just end up never starting. And I want to encourage the group to think, we're not just physicians. We are compassionate, strong, intelligent human beings with a lot of talents. And we really need to get over this sort of imposter syndrome that we have, like I'm not good enough and I need to get, all these credentials before I get started, because then we never start.
Right.
And I was doing that. We had some University of Washington medical students that were, rounding with us in the hospital when I was working as a hospitalist, and the residents, and I would tell them, I'm like, what, you can read up about hypercalcemia, you can read up about hypernatremia, and you guys are going to probably Google, pheochromocytoma if you ever got a case like that. But what I want to focus on is wellness. How are you taking care of yourselves, right? Like we all really have to keep having that conversation, because you don't want to wait like for a wellness committee. It's okay if you have a wellness committee, that's great, and you should get involved. But it's something we can just have in the corridors of the hospital or in clinic,
Right.
I wanted to focus on that mainly because of your story of how you were struggling in medical school, and then you're struggling through residency, and we kind of have this Lone Ranger syndrome, right? We're thinking we're the only ones who are struggling. Everybody else seems to be doing great, and it's like you don't realize everybody is struggling, but we just don't
exactly
talk
we
about
just don't verbalize it. Yeah.
Right. It's just not part of our medical culture to show our vulnerability, and I think we need to start talking up that more. But also, Jonah, kind of talking about what you were saying about more physicians needing to be incorporating lifestyle medicine practices in their own life. What has been your experience like with your colleagues, with the other physicians, because they know that you're having these conversations with patients? What has been sort of the culture where you work around this?
Yeah, actually, I would say it's pretty accepting, which, for me is kind of surprising, just because, anytime that people encounter some new aspect of what they're already used to, it's kind of already met with, like, oh, what is that? Like, it's not kind of met with like an open mind. You know what I mean? So, but I think also too, it makes it an easier conversation if you're doing it yourself. Some of my colleagues actually are eating more plants because of the conversations I have with them. And I don't like, try to jam down their throat. Okay, eat eat broccoli, eat kale. Like everyone should do this. Like, I try not to do that because,
That never works anyway.
yeah, exactly. People just shut down. I know very well from my experience trying to tell my family to do it. So, but
Right.
like
Yeah.
I think if you lead by example,
Yes.
people start noticing. And so I think that also opens up the conversation to talk to them more. And people have actually approached me. And what's interesting is that ever since I started doing this, the family medicine department that's a part of our program. So I'm internal medicine, right? So the family medicine they have clinics, they're like, we want you to talk to us and also possibly have you as a consultant for some of our patients in our panel. And so, I mean, I think that
That's fantastic.
I know it's awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm also doing talks at these corporate luncheons because amongst all the physicians that work at my hospital in our group, I am the only doctor who is lifestyle medicine certified. And so the PR department knows about this. So they actually put me on the schedule to talk to different companies, and actually just spoke with the Pancreatic Action Cancer Network that was about a week ago, and I talked to them about stress reduction.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I have one in 2 weeks from now. I'm talking to this other company about basically supporting your immune system. So nutrition, sleep, exercise, all these things. So I mean, I think more than ever, like the concepts of lifestyle medicine and what we're doing in lifestyle medicine, this is right now in this moment in time in our society, this is the perfect time to talk about it.
Totally.
And actually, I wanted to kind of make an announcement. I am starting a podcast. I'm already I'm recording episodes, so it's launching in a month or so.
Okay. What's it called?
So it's called Glass Half Healthy.
Glass Half Healthy.
Yeah, so like glass half full, glass half empty. So glass half healthy. Cool. Yeah. So the whole premise is COVID-19 has changed life for all of us.
Yes.
But we talked about this before coronavirus was even here, we were already dealing with the epidemic of chronic disease.
Absolutely.
And so, and the thing is, with people who have chronic disease, they're at the highest risk for severe coronavirus infections. Right. So what can we do to protect ourselves? But more importantly, how do we view health?
Right.
So my podcast is basically challenging the conventional concept of health. Yeah. Having just on the show to discuss it, because really what it comes down to is our lifestyles are a formation from our habits, and our habits come from actions that come from our thoughts. Absolutely. So you can change the thought, you can change the habit, action, and you can change the lifestyle. So that's what I want to do with this podcast. And that, like listening to Rich Roll podcast and other podcasts, I realized like it is such a great avenue for people looking for answers. Like for myself, like when I was in residency and listening to this stuff, like if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have anything. Like I wouldn't know where to search. Right. So, like, people are they're yearning for this stuff. So the more conversations we can have with people, you don't have to do a podcast. Just talk to your local community, talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to your patients about it. Like it's a great conversation piece because no one wants to get coronavirus. No one wants. It's such a crazy virus. It's so unpredictable. But the thing that is predictable is that we know that you're more likely to get severe disease if you have a chronic disease. Right. How can you do that? Well, you can start by eating healthier. You can start by exercising more. So like that's why I wanted to do this podcast. So I really hope that people listen to it and it helps out themselves and other people. For sure. That's So,
we're talking about Rich Roll. So first of all, Jonah, you're going to get super jealous. I actually have a picture of myself with Rich Roll. He was, I know this is like the star trace. He was at one of the plant-based conferences. I think I've been to.
Oh my gosh. Did you hug him?
Oh, for sure. We were like, he was like the star, and he actually spoke about his journey, right? Because where he went from like being alcoholic.
Amazing. Amazing story.
So humble, and he's so sweet. So I'm like a big fan of his for like ever and ever and ever. And also my son, my 25-year-old son, I talked to him about it, and he listens to the podcast as well. And so we have this kind of connection where we discuss some of the things that, that comes up. But he actually interviewed, I don't know if you listened to the one with David Katz, who was one of the founding
Yes.
members of ACLM. And
Yes.
I love what Dr. Katz said, where he said, because we see, they're like, oh, so and so died of COVID, they're on the front pages. But he says every year, 500,000 Americans, 500,000 Americans die of diet related illness, but they don't ever make it in the headlines, right? Like they,
Right.
oh,
Right.
died of a stroke or a heart attack or whatever. And it's become so crazy that we think it's normal. We think it's
Right.
okay for a 60-year-old to die of, like you said, like colon cancer. I mean, like how
Right.
crazy is that when there
It's
is
so crazy.
clear-cut evidence that 80%, at least 80% of chronic illnesses can be easily reversed or avoided just by changing the diet. Like it is,
Right.
and this is not taught in medical school. Like this should be class 1, class 2, class 10. Like it should be throughout medical education over and over and over and over and over again, such that there should be no doubt left. What's happening is there's so much noise in the nutrition arena right now with,
Right.
the paleo, and this is good and that is good,
Right.
and everybody's screaming from the rooftops, that it's so hard sometimes to get like a voice of, a sensible voice heard, right?
Right. Right.
So, like nobody now doubts that if somebody comes in with an MI, they need to be put on a statin. Is anybody questioning that? Whether it's an aspirin or a statin or beta blocker, like it is established care, period. And my hope is that plant-based diet becomes the established care. It has a standard of care. Every physician, no matter what their specialty, should be talking it up with their patients. Just like now, telling patients to quit smoking is standard of care, right?
Right. Right.
We've
Yeah. 100%.
where these things are like we would be appalled if we saw somebody have an MI and the cardiologist says, yeah, nah, you don't need a statin, you're fine, or whatever, right? Like we've
Right.
reached that point in medicine where there is so much focus on medicines being standard of care, but what really needs to happen is the lifestyle needs to be the first standard of care. Of course we need drugs, of course we need surgeons, of course, like we've talked about, none of us are dissing acute care. I'm like a firm believer in evidence-based medicine. Like there's no
Yeah.
question about it, right?
Right. Me too. Yep.
Yeah, but it's because of the industry and because there's just no, there's not the push like there is with drugs, that it's still kind of hidden. And it's funny when you tell people, I'm passionate about lifestyle medicine, even physicians, they're like, yeah, that's kind of nice, but is that kind of like functional? Is it like people don't even know what the definition is? And it's
Yeah, exactly.
right, it seems so simple almost, and it's like
Yeah.
it's simple, but it's powerful. And
Right.
to tag on to one more thing that you said, we all need to be talking up about it. Like you said, this, we because this is the other thing. I myself have said it. Well, there's Dr. Greger and Barnard and Ornish. Like, who am I to put my voice in the mix?
Imposter syndrome. There you go. Yeah.
Syndrome again, and we can't afford it anymore, right?
Exactly. Too many people sick and dying from this. We
Right.
all need to just say it.
Right.
Make the conversations.
Right.
You don't need to do a podcast. You don't need to have a Facebook Live group. Just talk to people.
Right.
Exactly.
Every time you can bring it up, it's good. It's good to bring it up and talk about it, because that's how we spread the news, right? Even with all this social media craziness and fake news and whatnot. But I think when a group of physicians, and patients still have so much respect for us, they still believe that when we tell them that we've looked at the science, this is not some, crazy thing. We've looked at the science, we've looked at the data, we've looked at the papers, and this is by far the most superior and healthy diet there is out there for longevity. The weight loss is a nice side effect. The being off drugs, of course, is amazing.
Right.
So what are your thoughts in terms of like, so you mentioned that a lot of your family practice docs are wanting you to like set up maybe like have you given thought to it, like doing consults specifically with lifestyle medicine?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have that conversation happened at like the end of February. So that was right before, the clamp down and, stay at home orders. So like all that stuff has been put on hold, but we're starting to open clinics back up. So I think that, yes, that's something that I'm looking into over the next couple of months. So, and I think, like, we were talking about specialists before. I think that no matter what field of medicine you're in, there's always room to talk about lifestyle changes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to, be a primary doctor to, embrace lifestyle medicine. There's actually a lot of different physicians. Like, for example, I can think of one, Dr. Juan. He's a neurosurgeon out of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a neurosurgeon.
Mm-hmm.
This is stuff that he's been talking about for quite some time. So it doesn't matter what specialty you're in, and you can help out patients in any way, shape, or form, no matter what specialty you're in. So, but yeah, I am planning on doing that in the next couple of months once those clinics start opening back up. Our discharge clinic actually already started opening up, but we're only seeing a couple patients a week. So once we start ramping up, then yeah, I'm probably going to see more of those family medicine patients. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And
Yeah.
are you planning to do any sort of like well, not necessarily a study, but keep data about these? Because like Dr. Barnett, and who was the first person I interviewed on this series, was talking about how one of their main focus, because anecdotes are great, right? They're like,
Sure.
love stories, but then people want hard science and hard data.
Right.
And so they've
Right.
been actually keeping a database of like all the patients who've been through their Jumpstart program, how much weight they've lost and what their cholesterols did, what their fasting sugars did and whatnot. So is there a chance for you to be able to do that once you maybe start doing this a little bit more?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we haven't even started yet officially, but we've just had the conversation. But that's a great thing to bring up, and I think it would be, easy to track because, we have their vitals and their weight when they come in. Each time they come in, we
Right.
can get periodic labs. I mean, these are things that we could easily track. So yeah, no, great point. I will definitely bring that up. That's a
Yeah.
great idea.
You probably have well, everybody has an EMR these days, so that makes it
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
easier to
we
track.
have. Oh my gosh, Epic. I
Epic.
used to use Cerner. I was like, wait, Cerner Epic? Yeah, Epic. We use Epic. So.
Epic. Oh my God. Yeah, it's great for, getting information in the middle of the night when you're admitting somebody, but
Yeah, yeah, right.
data entry stuff, but so well, good. So what about like educating the physicians around you? Are you feeling like, well, we kind of talked about it where you're kind of
hmm
setting an example, and then
hmm
they're seeing results in you, but maybe they're also seeing, because with hospitalist medicine is almost like a marriage, right? Like, because you're all seeing the same patients.
Right, right. Yeah, no, most definitely.
It's such a group concept, and so they must be seeing what's going on with the patients who are willing to make these changes. And do you get a sense of them becoming believers or wanting to actually look into it more? Are you piquing their interest in some way?
Yeah, I would say that the ones that, so not everyone has to work in the discharge clinic. There's only like a small group of us that do, but I think the docs that do work in the discharge clinic are seeing, wow, okay, that patient was just here like a month ago. They lost like 10, 12 pounds and they look like way happier than when we
Yeah,
saw them last time. And so like, what is this? What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm not adding on medications. I'm just changing the way that they view things and like get them to do things that are, finally a healthy habit, you
yeah,
know? So,
yeah.
so yeah, I think it's picking up. No one has this. Oh, actually, there are two people that brought up because, the lifestyle medicine conference is, I guess, still planned, right, for November in Carlsbad, which is here in California. It's not that far from where we are.
Mhm.
So there's two docs that are interested in possibly, at least going to the conference, maybe getting the certification, but we'll see. I mean, just, I talk to people when I can, see an open angle. If they like bring something up, I'm like, okay, this is my opportunity to talk about it. So, yeah, I mean, there's interest, I would say. It's not everyone, but it's a start.
It is a
So
start for sure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And you also mentioned like doing talks at like corporate
hmm
luncheon. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And maybe if some of the physicians here who are listening to us or will be watching this replay, maybe if they're interested in doing that, can you tell me kind of how you got into it? Who's your audience and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I got into it because I'm a part of the wellness committee at my hospital, and the
Okay.
wellness committee is headed partly by the business head of our hospital, and so she knows exactly what I'm doing, and she said, you know what, we need this we need this word out in the community, and so she reached out to the PR department for our hospital, so they got in contact with me. And like I said, I'm the only lifestyle medicine doctor in our practice. So there's, I think like 6 or 7 different um, companies that reached out and were like, okay, we want a topic on this, we want a topic on that. And so I think like if you want to do it, if that's something that you're interested in doing, and by the way, I would totally recommend it because it's number one, it's fun, right? Talking to people about this and just fielding their questions, but two, like it's again, you're spreading the information, you're getting the knowledge out. Like knowledge is power, but like true power is like applied knowledge. But the knowledge alone is a powerful piece.
Yes.
Once they hear it and they see like you were talking about anecdotal examples, like stories, like that stuff's inspirational for people.
Very much.
And yes, I agree that evidence is so important, but I can throw 5,000 studies at someone's
Yeah.
face. If they not motivated to do it, they're not
Yeah.
going to do it. They're
Right.
not going to do it. So I think both parts are very important, but I think from like an individual standpoint, it's inspirational if they hear someone who went through it themselves and see on the other side, wow, there's been like a lot of positive changes in this person. I want to try it out for myself.
Right.
But like, and we were talking about this, the COVID epidemic. I think that like people need it. Like so last week I spoke with the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. Some of the questions I was getting, I was like, my heart goes out to them because there was just this level of anxiety and level of stress that people are going through right now with
Right.
not just coronavirus, their jobs, not being able to get outside,
Right.
everything that's going on with like the protests,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
social injustice. Like there's all these things just kind of
So much.
stacking up in people's head. And so
Yes, for sure.
I think now more than ever, like the people need us.
Right.
We need to get the word out there. And I think Heather,
Yeah.
from this group, Heather, she mentioned to me in like a Facebook thread, she said something along the lines of, if we want lifestyle medicine to change lives, we have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And it, that really spoke to me. I think that really resonated with what I'm trying to do. And I think, we all need to do our own part to do it in our respective communities. If we're going to change things, it has to start from the ground level.
For sure.
So,
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up. I think again, we're not just doctors, we are potential patients too. We are human after all. Hello, people.
yeah,
And,
exactly. Like these patients, I mean, I'm patient number one.
right.
Hello, this is I treated myself, so
Exactly.
and like you were saying, you can't expect people to do it if you're not walking the walk,
Right. It becomes
So
much harder, I think even like
yeah.
from it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, a physician who, again, to use the old cliche, if you're smoking, it's going to be much harder for you to convince people or tell them why you think they should quit smoking. And I think
Right.
that's probably something that comes up for a lot of physicians when they see like some of us lifestyle medicine crazy people, like, oh, you got to eat plants and whatever, because they're having to face their own sort of, thing that's going on. And what
Right.
I've thought about is, I was stress eating like crazy when I was a hospitalist, before I came to know about lifestyle medicine and all of this. Like, 3 o'clock, I'm down in the cafeteria looking. For me, it was like salt and deep fried stuff. That was my
Yeah. Oh yeah.
for like
Yum yum.
fries and tater tots. And I think to myself, like, how much our biology of our body is connected to our mind, right? And that's again another big component,
Right.
kind of going back to some of that meditation piece that you talked about, and how the two are so amazingly interconnected. Because what I noticed is when I started changing my diet, and like you, Jana, my story is not as tragic as yours, but my dad died of a stroke at the age of 70. and he had
Oh,
diabetes,
goodness.
he had hypertension, he had a massive stroke. I was in this country, I'd just gotten my American passport. I had to fly,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, to get my passport stamp, to get a visa to fly, and I was like the apple of his eye. We were so close, and I was totally devastated. I could not
I'm
believe.
sorry to hear that.
Right. It was horrible, and so when I heard about lifestyle medicine and knowing that in my family I have diabetes and hypertension and all of these things, and I was like, wow, here's a way I can try to protect my children. Like, I do not want my kids to go through what I went through. So that's my why, and I think that's another
Right.
to bring up is when we're talking to our patients, whether it's in the hospital setting or clinic setting, because it's so much about eating. Is it starts in the mind. To me, it doesn't start in the gut. It really starts with the mind. And like you said, when we can change our thoughts, then we can change our emotions and our actions around it. And so it's really important to have that motivational interview piece with the patients to say, listen, you're here, you've had like your third heart attack, you might not be lucky the next time around, right? You
Right.
might not be around for your grandchildren. Like, what is it that makes you want to live? And
Right.
if you can get them to kind of explain that and expound on that, then you go, well, bingo, that's why we are asking you to do this. Like, I'm here to support you. There's so many resources now, but I think it's so important to get our patients to understand what their why is, because then every time they're tempted by that piece of chicken or whatever, or chocolate cake, they they can pull themselves back, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. and
No,
i and
I can't agree more. You
yeah.
need a strong why. I mean, purpose drives everything in life, you know?
Right, right,
So
right,
you can't do it if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You have to do it for the reason you want to do it, right?
right,
So yeah,
right,
no, I totally agree with that.
right.
So
And then I
I
think the
think that,
second
yeah.
prong, I don't know what it's like in your hospital, like the hospital cafeteria food. Can you can you talk a little bit more to that?
Yeah, actually, surprise. I'm like so lucky. So one, we have that discharge clinic. Two, our cafeteria is incredible. They cater to all different diets, and actually they do a meatless Monday. And so we have like our own separate like salad bar, but it's not just like raw vegetables. There's other stuff that's like you know plant based in there. So we have like a plethora of selection. And then even for our patients that are hospitalized,
Yeah.
there's like a number of diets, and one being plant based, like vegan diet. So
Mhm.
they really cater to anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that it's specific to my hospital, but I know that like not a lot of hospitals are like that, you
Right.
know. But I mean,
You're
we
in
should
LA,
do in
California, so
yeah,
that relates a lot.
yeah. I'm like in the hotbed of it. I know. I'm so lucky to be here. But yeah, I mean, all hospitals should. I mean, it's ridiculous. You're basically fueling them for their next flare up
Yeah.
by offering these foods.
Isn't
Like,
that crazy?
what are we doing to ourselves?
I know.
You
I'm
know?
telling you, it was so eye-opening. Like, you'd walk into their room after they've had their cardiac bypass surgery or whatever, and they're clutching their heart-shaped pillow that the volunteers make, right? And then
Right.
on their tray, you're seeing like bacon and sausage and eggs, and you're like, oh
Yeah,
my
I know.
God, I cannot believe. Like, and the irony of it, like nobody else seems to be getting it. You're like, are you seeing
No.
what I'm seeing? You guys even like understand what we're doing here? Like, it is so, like, it's such a foreign concept still, but
Right.
like you said, the hospital I worked here in Olympia, one of our cardiothoracic surgeons, Dr. Ron Quinton, he read the China study many, many years ago,
Oh, yes.
totally plant-based. And he's a surgeon, and so he's like, you are eating this vegan food, and the patient, no. And the nurses are all in between. They're like, I wish Dr. Quinton would just like stay away, but he's trying in his own way. He was like, I've lost 30 pounds. I feel great, and our emotions change. Have you seen that? Like, I feel like going plant-based, I have a lot more energy, and I look at things in such a positive way. And, there's definitely that gut brain microbiome change that changes the endorphins and the dopamine and the serotonin in our brain. Like, I don't even need studies to tell me that. I see.
Yeah, exactly. You feel it.
Yeah, you feel
Yeah.
it.
No, like
Yeah.
likewise. I mean, like I was saying before, you brought up like the whole keto flu. Like eating meat is kind of like that. You get this mental fogginess, especially like after lunchtime.
Yeah.
I don't get that anymore at all. I'm
Yeah.
still good to go by like 5, 6 p.m. So yeah, there's definitely like this energy difference you feel.
Right.
You feel lighter. Like just uh, figuratively you feel lighter. It's
Yeah.
just yeah, it's definitely a change, and yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the whole gut microbiome connection with the brain.
For sure.
So yeah,
How do you manage to, because one of the things I would say, it is a little bit challenging because you do need to do some meal planning, some batch cooking and stuff like that. You probably need to be at least somewhat of a decent cook. Like, it's very hard to get healthy, whole food, plant-based foods out there. How do
yeah.
you incorporate that in your own life as a busy hospitalist?
Okay, I am really blessed. Let me just say, my wife's in the other room. She's working. She's the one that cooks. I mean, I could, but she's really good, and she's much faster than I am with like preparing food. So like, my heart goes out to wives out there that cook for their family. I mean, she's amazing. But like, I also in the hospital when I'm working, I do intermittent fasting.
Hmm.
So I don't eat until like maybe 3 or 4, and I just grab whatever snacks are in the hospital. So
Hmm.
like for me, I don't necessarily like need to meal plan.
Hmm.
But I know that's very important. So yeah, it is hard. I think it might be easier, like just having talked to other people about this, prepping at the beginning of the week, like on the Saturday or Sunday, and just making your meals for the week and just eating it that way, especially for busy physicians like ourselves. It's
Right.
probably the easier way to go about doing it, because if you would rely on yourself to do it each night, you might not follow through, and then you like slip back into a relapse of eating what you were previously eating. So
Right. And I
yeah,
think part of it also is trying to keep it simple. You don't have to, I mean, it's okay if you have, a day off and you feel like cooking something fancy. But like I've noticed that for us, and as Indians, we still eat a lot of Indian food, a lot of, Indian curry. But we cook maybe 2 or 3 times a week. We don't cook every day. My husband cooks as much as I do. In fact, he's probably the better cook, to be honest with you. But morning, breakfast is usually overnight oats or like a tofu scramble or avocado on toast. Like these three things. And that's what we just, I just circle through it, and then it's usually like brown rice with a little bit of curry and cooked vegetables on the side for lunch. And then my dinner is usually super light, maybe a soup or a salad or something. And then lots
sure.
of fruit in between, and so it doesn't have to be elaborate, I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, for sure. No, I
So
agree
like,
with that. And the thing is too, I just want to interject real quick. The
yeah,
thing is too, like it it doesn't even need to be 3 meals a day either.
true, true.
Like you can eat 2 meals a day or even one meal a day. Who told all of us that you have to eat 3 meals a day to survive? No, you don't. Like
Exactly.
I'm still alive after doing this intermittent fasting for a year and a half.
What?
so
And
so
no protein?
I,
Where's your
yeah,
protein, Omar? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, where is my protein coming from? It's just funny how like there's a lot of these concepts that get ingrained to us when we're little
For sure.
that don't really have much merit like in a practical standpoint. So like you can do a lot of these things, and like you were saying, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be this amazing meal.
Right.
You can get by with eating fruit and vegetables just the way they are.
Right.
That's
Right.
I mean that's how our ancestors lived too. I mean they didn't have a kitchen to cook stuff. I mean they were worried about running away from like saber-tooth tigers. So so
Exactly. Yeah.
for us, you just have to kind of change your attitude towards eating these things, and it's sustenance. You're doing it to live a healthy life. So and granted, yes, it takes time to ease into that.
Yeah.
If you've been living a certain way your whole life, like
Right.
it's a process. So
Right.
you just have to be patient with yourself in the process.
For
So
sure. You know what I
yeah,
used to tell people, Jonah, maybe I got made some enemies that way because people would say, "Oh, I can't do that." I'm like, "Listen, you went to medical school and you survived a residency. You can
yeah.
doing anything. You can do anything. You set your mind to it, and then be like, oh my God, here she comes."
No, I agree with you so much. Like we physicians go through the gauntlet of things.
Heck
Like, no, if you made it out, don't let anyone tell you you can't do anything. You can
right,
do whatever it is you want to do, especially if you've gone through medical school and residency.
sure.
Doesn't matter. Do
Right,
it.
right,
You can
right.
do it.
Get started, that's the thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
just
for
get
some
started. Yeah,
people,
exactly.
right, like you said, for some people, they can, ease in, maybe just start with meatless Mondays, maybe do 3 days a week that you're meatless, kind of build it up. Or for some people, it's just like, I'm just going to go, it's kind of like our smokers, some people can just quit cold turkey. Some people have to try a few times and wean themselves off, whatever works. And I think, we need to
Right.
be examples. I think that's the point. I think you and I are just kind of beating everybody over the head with is, unless we're the examples of showing that we believe that what we are saying is true, people pick up on that, and so,
Right.
and even if you're struggling, it's okay to say that. You can say, listen, I've been trying to go plant-based for this last month and I'm finding it hard. And people love that. They love that vulnerability about you, and like, wow, my doc is making that effort, it must be worth it for me to do it as well. So
Yeah.
it's important to
Right.
share our personal stories. I mean, not in a yucky, kind of a weird way, but
Yeah, for sure.
just to tell people, because I
That
shared
you're human. They want to see the vulnerability, like you said. They want to see it, and it's inspiring to them because you're
is
doing it, and you're offering it them for them to do it. So like, hearing it from the patient perspective, I think is very powerful. So I agree with you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, can you believe we're almost close to an hour?
No, I felt like it was like 20 minutes, maybe even less. Oh my God, this is crazy.
Like, I love doing
This is
these.
a lot of fun. This is so much
I
fun.
know it is, and it's so nice to talk to people who feel the same. I'm telling you, I felt very alone in my journey like 3 years ago. I went back to the hospital, and I'm going on and on about lifestyle medicine, plant based, and they were all like, "What is wrong with this crazy woman?" And I just felt so alone. But to find a community of like minded physicians, and like more and more people are talking about it, more and more people are getting involved in it. I can do this all day. I can just talking about it all day. So, well, do you have any last minute pieces of advice or anything else that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I would just say that when you go back to doing your, daily work and go back to, treating your patients and talking to your families and stuff, just know that there's always, room to make these conversations for changing lifestyle habits. And the thing is, we talked a lot about nutrition, and don't get me wrong, like out of all the pillars in lifestyle medicine, I would say nutrition and sleep, those are essential. If you don't do those, you'll die, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
can all agree to that. Those are like the cause, like big two causes of chronic disease. But there's all these other pillars that, if you focus on, like, incorporating just a little bit more exercise every day, or sleeping more, being consistent on sleep,
Mm-hmm.
you will start to see changes in like your attitude and how you feel, and then start trying to dabble into other pillars.
Mm-hmm.
So like doing plant-based, like, and mindfulness for me, like I'm trying to do better in sleep, because like for me, sleep is something that I have like struggled with for a while. But like my wife and I made a pact to like try to sleep at least 7 to 8 hours a night, and we have a young kid too, so it's obviously hard. But
Yeah.
like you don't have to focus on everything. You could focus on that one thing,
Right.
and it builds up, and then you start getting curious about the other things.
Yeah.
So like just get started. Tell people, it doesn't have to be a perfect attempt. Like just do it and be
Yeah.
consistent at it. And over time you'll start to see the changes. That's
For,
what I would say.
for sure. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to listening to your podcast. So when you go
Thank you.
live, make sure you post it. Make sure you let us know.
For
I,
sure, for
I
sure.
would
And
love to.
Ash, I would love to have you on the show if you'd be
Oh,
you guys, yeah.
I don't know. Well, we'll see. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
Well, it was so nice talking to you again, Jonar, and thank you so much for being willing to spend this time and sharing your experiences with us. And I think we just need to all keep the conversation going till we're finally heard, until we can, you know, see that cost curve and the chronic disease burden start coming down. I think that's what our passion is about ultimately, is to take really good care of our patients and our population and our communities. So there's so many different ways to do it, so many different avenues. So,
Exactly. I agree with that.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. So thank you, everyone that was out there listening.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. All right. Take care, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.